In one of the previous lessons we have faced the bug which is related to deleting activities. And right after we try to delete activity in a console, we're gonna get the following error saying that timeline items is not defined. And this error is happening inside activities module, specifically inside delete activity function. Let's open up this function in our editor. And in here, as we can see, this function consists of two parts. First part is responsible for resetting activity by assigning null values to certain properties of timeline item object. Because of course, since we are removing the activity, we also have to remove its identifier from all timeline item objects. And the second part of this function is responsible for the actual deletion of the activity object from our activities array. So it looks like currently this function has two responsibilities. First responsibility is to reset activity identifiers, and the second responsibility is to remove activity object from activities array. So we can split up this function into two separate functions. So let's declare new function inside timeline items.js module. We're gonna call this function reset timeline item activities and paste there the first part of that function, which is actually responsible for resetting activity ID and activity seconds properties of timeline item objects. And also inside this function we have to know which activity we're currently removing. So let's pass this activity as the first parameter in this function. And after we could just call our new function inside delete activity function as the first statement like this. But since this function is responsible for managing timeline item objects, and we are currently located inside the activities module, let's not mix in two separate concerns inside activities module. So what we can do instead is we can go inside the app component, and wherever we are providing access to delete activity function by using provide function call, we're going to modify this function a little bit. And besides deleting activity, firstly, we're going to reset timeline item activity IDs by calling our new function reset timeline item activities, like so. And just because these two functions accept activity object, let's pass activity object into both functions. And of course, reset timeline item activities function has to be imported first, so let's scroll up and add import statement in here. And after this, we'll be ready to check result in a browser. So let's try to remove these activities and make sure that our activities array will be empty after this. That's exactly what we're seeing. So our removal activities behavior is working fine. And there is actually one more thing that I would like to change inside timeline items module, and that is related to generate timeline items function. This function is used only here. So it would make more sense to make this function private inside this module. So let's cut declaration of this function from functions module and move it inside timeline items. We're also going to tweak this function a bit because right now it is no longer necessary to accept first parameter activities, because array of activities is already imported inside this module. So we can simply refer to this array via value property, since this array is reactive, like this. And now we can easily make this function private by removing export keyword. And of course, importing this function from the functions module is no longer necessary. Let's remove this import. So there is still one more thing that we have to do in here, and that is import constant hours in day. Let's scroll up. Actually, firstly, let's go to functions.js module and remove import of this constant from this import statement. And after this, we can go back to timeline items module and write down import statement for hours in a day constant. So let's verify that everything is still working properly in the browser. Let's try to remove activity. Also, let's try to add new activity and then start tracking time for this activity on timeline page and verify that this time will be decreasing on activities page. So this is working. We will continue our development in the next lesson.